The federal government says Nigeria is currently producing about 1.745 million barrels of crude oil per day, targeting to hit 2 million barrels per day by the end of 2025. Senator Heineken Lokpobiri, Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Oil, said this while declaring the 2025 Nigerian Oil and Gas Energy Week opened on Tuesday in Abuja. Senator Lokpobiri said that the production target for 2025 budget was based on 2.06 million barrels per day, adding that it must ramp up production to hit 2 million. He said that in 2023, when he was appointed as minister, there was no investment for 10 years due to legal framework and other challenges. He said that from 2023, the narratives changed and investments were recorded as a result of deliberate policies and reforms that worked an absolute increase in investors' confidence in Nigeria. Minister also appealed to the National Assembly to reduce the number of summons of the IOCs and industry players for legislative.
Per barrel, if I'm not mistaken, we're not far away from that. And depending on what happens with the Middle East, geopolitical issues and those trade conversations the U.S. the U.S. is having with other countries, we may as well meet that pricing target. But if we see on the road now decanting, passing it on from one cylinder to another, passing it on from one cylinder to another, that's decanting, right? You see a lot of LPG plants, you see a few CNG plants, you see that collaboration between Dangote and Tetracor to supply 4,000 trucks with CNG. So I think it's midstream, upstream, and downstream across the value chain. And the PIA did play a role. And the fact that it's the decade of gas and government is pushing a gas narrative. Government is then saying to people, rather than give you subsidy, we are substituting subsidy with a cheaper alternative, which is gas. So there's a lot of play around gas. There's even a lot of play around crude. You see a number of traders lending money to particularly indigenous exploration and production companies. The trifiguras of these worlds are lending monies in exchange for crude subsequently. So across the entire value chain, there's a lot of activities, especially with the policies too. People are trying to see how they can benefit from those policies. So across the value chain, there's a lot of work going on.
I think there's also been some clearance of legacy debts owed to gas producers. Many say that that's a critical step in, enhancing or improving harnessing our proven and unproven reserves, as you used to say, experts like you would say, of gas that we have in country.
These policies and putting them in the books, in reality, it's also difficult to get. The practicality of getting them and ensuring that they do exist in reality when it's time to apply for an import duty waiver or an import duty exemption.
We crossed the River Niger, and that to them means that by Q4 2025, they should be able to complete that project. That seems to be like a very notable one. How does it come to you, Dr. Oni?
Well, it's notable. I think it's good for us both from a balance of trade, balance of payment, even a GDP standpoint, and to generally improve the lot of our people. Because without energy, we don't make progress. Because once you deregulate, then it means that if the base price, that's the price of crude oil, changes, automatically the price of the finished product will change, even if the cost of refining and other costs don't change. Because recall that they will be buying that and they're refining it. So if you buy it, if it was previously $80 and becomes $95, of course, it's going to change because you are buying to refine. So that affects it. Unless, of course, there was subsidy and government used to take that difference, right? Government bought that difference. Now that government no longer bears that difference, once there's a change, it will impact us, particularly when existing stock is finished. So I'm not surprised. It'll probably be the case for a very long time. Remember that the oil prices just oscillate. Once there's a dispute, a regional chaos or crisis, oil prices change, right? And when there's a glut, oil prices fall substantially too. So that's one. On Dangote's efforts, there have been arguments to and fro. I think that one, we should let the regulators do the job. Two, I'm of the view that you don't punish enterprise. If someone is enterprising and is creative and even cuts the cost middlemen, then middlemen will need to find alternatives. That's my view, and they will need to also make their own investments, right? So it's going to be people who are going to drive these trucks. So people really don't lose their jobs. The 4,000 trucks, it's going to be drivers. It may be drivers of the previous middlemen who would now be moving over. So I think nothing changes in terms of people losing or gain jobs. But in terms of cost reduction, maybe a good thing for the ultimate buyer. And competition, will leave that to the FCCPC, the Federal Consumer Protection, Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, to look into.
As much as I will leave that to the FCPC, I would follow up with you before we leave the downstream, that some guys will tell you that there have been a lot of investment. For example, the likes of the depot owners, the likes of the major energy marketers, independent marketers. Many of them will tell you, we've taken loans, we've got into this kind of business. So I think the PIA, is there an opportunity or is there any section of it, you understand it better than I do, that addresses this aspect of it, you know? No specifics, just the issues.
Okay, generally speaking, recall that every businessman takes market risks. If you take market risk, you've done your analysis, and then you take market risk, you take technological risk. So if anything changes from a market standpoint, from a technological standpoint, sadly, it is what it is. That said, you also want to check from a consumer protection standpoint, ensuring that no market is overrun by just a single person. So, but if someone is creative, then they are creative. I understand that there are loans and all of that, but I'm sure Dangote alone cannot even do it in the market, to be honest, as things stand, you know. So I think that you may have to do you may have to weigh things and see what the regulator also thinks. But I'm of the view that you don't punish enterprise, that said, and that the average every businessman takes market risk and technological risk.
All right, then let's wrap the conversation up now. What are your projections for the market? We've seen crude price also drop. As of today, it's a bit down, not too, but marginally down. OPEC basket and, of course, WTI. It's been a mixed bag in recent times. But do you think that anything could happen and price could, say, jump above $70, $75 again before the end of the year?
Oh, yes, of course. It depends on what happens with the regional politics and the trade conversations. It depends on how they go. If they go one way, prices could go as high as $80. If they go the other way, then they would remain at current levels or even go lower. So there's absolutely, no one can absolutely state what it will be. It depends on the outcomes we get from these conversations and from geopolitical tensions we see around the world, particularly in the Middle East. But my projection is that, well, about a $70 per barrel price is what I see ultimately.
That won't be too good for our budget. How much did you say? How much a dollar for a barrel?
I think it's about $75 per barrel.
That's 75 for our budget projection. But how much are you looking at? Are you projecting?
Oh, I'm projecting anywhere from $67 to about $80.
Okay. Depending on whatever happens.
Yeah, depending on what happens, yes.
Dr. Odeleoni,
conversations.
I must thank you so much, as always. Interesting conversation with you around Nigeria's oil and gas industry. Do enjoy the rest of your day at work. Cheers. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, then.